For 6 months, I was Officer Riley Parker, prison guard at a women's correctional facility in Oregon. I showed up, did my job, maintained professional distance, went home. Then Maya Chen arrived, serving 5 years for a white-collar crime she swore she didn't commit. I wasn't supposed to believe her. I definitely wasn't supposed to fall for her. And I absolutely wasn't supposed to quit my job, help prove her innocence, and wait outside those prison gates the day she was released. But I did all of it. Because sometimes the person behind bars is more free than the person holding the keys. Before I tell you how a prisoner taught me what freedom really means, let me ask, what city are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below and subscribe to help this channel grow. Your support means everything. My name is Riley Parker, and I became a corrections officer because I believed in rehabilitation, in second chances, in the idea that prison could be about reform rather than just punishment. I was 24, idealistic, fresh out of training when I started Oregon Women's Correctional Facility. The job quickly taught me that idealism doesn't survive long in a system designed more for warehousing than healing. By the time Maya Chen arrived 6 months into my career, I'd learned to maintain professional distance, to see inmates as numbers rather than people, to not get emotionally involved with their stories. It was survival in a job that could break you if you cared too much. Maya was assigned to my cell block. 32 years old, sentenced to 5 years for embezzlement from the tech startup where she'd worked as CFO. She maintained her innocence from day one, which most inmates do. I'd learned not to believe those claims. Everyone in prison is innocent if you ask them. But Maya was different in ways I tried to ignore. She was quiet, observant, followed rules meticulously. She didn't engage in drama, didn't cause problems, spent her time reading law books from the prison library. While other inmates watched TV or argued, she took notes, researched case law, prepared appeals. "Officer Parker, can I ask you something?" she said one day during recreation time. I was supposed to minimize conversation with inmates. "What is it?" "The law library has limited hours." "Is there any way to get additional access?" "I'm working on my appeal and I need more research time." "Appeal is handled by your lawyer, not you." My public defender filed one appeal and gave up. Said the evidence was too strong. "But Officer Parker, I didn't do this. I was framed by my business partner, and if I can just access the right case precedents, I can prove it." I'd heard similar stories countless times. "That's not something I can help with." She nodded, accepting the boundary, but something in her expression stayed with me. Not desperation or manipulation, just quiet determination. Like she knew the truth and was willing to be patient, proving it. Over the following weeks, I found myself watching her more than I should. The way she'd help other inmates with legal questions, never asking anything in return. How she'd share commissary items with women who had no family support. The dignity she maintained despite her circumstances. She treated everyone with respect, including guards other inmates hated. "Why are you nice to us?" I finally asked one day. "Most inmates see guards as the enemy. You're doing your job." I'm not angry at individuals for a system that failed me. Being bitter doesn't change my situation. Being decent might. "You really believe you're innocent?" "I know I'm innocent." My business partner embezzled funds and made it look like I authorized the transfers. He had access to my passwords, forged my digital signature. I trusted him completely, and he used that trust to steal and frame me. She looked at me directly. "I don't expect you to believe me, Officer Parker. But I'm going to prove it anyway." Something about her certainty got under my skin. That night, I did something I shouldn't have. I looked up her case file, read the trial transcripts, examined the evidence. The prosecution's case was solid on paper but relied heavily on digital evidence that could have been manipulated. Her business partner, Marcus Chen, her cousin who she'd brought into the company, had testified against her and received immunity. He'd walked away free while Maya served 5 years. I told myself I was just curious, that it didn't mean anything. But I started paying closer attention to her appeals work, occasionally pointing her toward relevant case law when no one was watching, suggesting legal research directions without explicitly helping. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly one day after I'd mentioned a precedent case. But thank you. I didn't do anything. You pointed me toward Johnson v. State. That case establishes that digital evidence requires independent verification of authenticity. It's exactly what I needed. She smiled slightly. I see you, Officer Parker. And I appreciate it. Being seen by her felt different than being seen by others. Like she understood I was a person who happened to wear a uniform, not just a uniform who happened to be a person. Around month 3, I started having conversations with Maya that went beyond professional boundaries. Late night rounds when the cell block was quiet, she'd tell me about her life before prison. About building a successful company, about trusting the wrong person, about losing everything in one trial. I told her about growing up in foster care, about choosing corrections work because I wanted to help, about gradually losing that idealism. You haven't lost it entirely, she observed. You still see us as human. That's rare here. I'm not supposed to see you as anything but inmates. But you do. Riley, can I call you Riley when it's just us? You're the only guard here who treats us like we people who made mistakes rather than mistakes in human form. Hearing my first name from her felt intimate in ways it shouldn't. You need to be careful. Other inmates notice everything. If they think you're getting special treatment, it makes things harder for you. Is that what this is? Special treatment? I don't know what this is. But Maya, I'm supposed to maintain professional distance. I'm failing at that with you. Then maybe we should stop talking. Yeah, maybe we should. But we didn't stop. If anything, our conversations deepened. She told me about her life before, about girlfriends she'd had, about coming out to conservative parents who eventually accepted her. I told her about realizing I was gay in foster care, about hiding it from adoptive families, about finally accepting myself. We discovered shared experiences, parallel lives that had led to this impossible situation. Around month 4, I realized I was falling for her. The recognition was terrifying. She was an inmate, I was a guard. The power dynamic was impossible. Even if she had feelings too, she couldn't freely express them given my position. Everything about it was ethically compromised. I started requesting different shifts, avoiding her cell block, trying to create distance. But other guards noticed and complained I wasn't pulling my weight. My supervisor reassigned me back to my original block. You've been avoiding me, Maya said during my first night back. I've been working different shifts. Why? Because whatever this is between us, it can't happen. Maya, you're serving time. I'm your guard. There's no universe where this is appropriate. I know, Riley, I know the situation is impossible. But I've been in here for 4 months, and you're the only thing that makes this bearable. Knowing you're here, being able to talk to you, it's what keeps me going. That's not fair to either of us. I know. But it's true anyway. She looked at me seriously. I'm not asking you for anything. I just need you to know that when I get out of here, when I prove my innocence and rebuild my life, you're going to be the first person I look for. Because Riley, I'm falling in love with you, and I can't pretend I'm not anymore. Her confession stunned me. I should have shut it down immediately, maintained professional boundaries, reported the conversation. Instead, I said, I'm falling for you too. And I hate that I can't do anything about it. You can wait for me. 2 more years, assuming I win my appeal. Then I'm out, we're equals. And we can figure out if this is real. 2 years is a long time. I've got nothing but time. And Riley, you're worth waiting for. That conversation changed everything. We couldn't be together, couldn't act on feelings, couldn't do anything but exist in careful friendship. But knowing she loved me, that she was willing to wait, made the impossible situation slightly more bearable. I started actively helping with her appeal, using my off hours to research, connecting her with legal resources, even reaching out to law students who did pro bono work. I told myself it was about justice, about helping someone who deserved it. But really, it was about love. Around month 5, Maya's new appeal gained traction. A law professor from University of Oregon took her case, found inconsistencies in the digital evidence, discovered Marcus had a gambling problem and financial motive. The case was reopened. It's working, she told me, barely containing excitement. They're investigating Marcus. Riley, I might actually get out of here. I'm so happy for you. For us. Because when I get out, first thing I'm doing is finding you. The investigation moved faster than expected. Marcus, facing his own charges, confessed to everything. He'd embezzled funds, used Maya's credentials, let her take the fall. Within 6 weeks of the confession, Maya's conviction was overturned. She was declared innocent, all charges vacated. She had 2 weeks to process out of the system. During that time, we barely spoke, both aware that anything we said or did while she was still technically incarcerated could jeopardize everything. The day before her release, I turned in my resignation. I couldn't be a corrections officer anymore, not after everything. The job had broken something in me that loving Maya had started to heal. I needed to find work that aligned with my actual values. Her release was scheduled for 8 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. I wasn't supposed to be there, wasn't working that day, had no official reason to be present. But I woke up at 6, drove to the prison, and waited outside the gates. At 8:15, Maya walked through those gates carrying a small bag of belongings. She looked around, saw me standing by my car, and stopped. For a long moment, we just looked at each other. No bars between us, no power dynamic, no professional obligations. Just two people who'd fallen in love in the most impossible circumstances. She walked toward me slowly, like she couldn't quite believe I was real. When she reached me, she said simply, "You waited. I said I would." "I know. But Riley, you quit your job. You helped prove my innocence. You've been here this whole time despite everything. Why?" "Because you were right. You're worth waiting for. And Maya, I love you. I've loved you since month 2, even when I was trying to convince myself I didn't." She dropped her bag and kissed me. Right there in the prison parking lot, she kissed me like she'd been waiting 6 months to do it. I kissed her back, everything that had been impossible suddenly, finally real. When we broke apart, both of us crying, she said, "I spent 6 months in a cell, and I've never felt more free than I do right now. What happens now? Now we figure out our lives. I need to rebuild my career. You need to find new work. We need to discover who we are when we're not guard and inmate." But Riley, we figure it out together. We got in my car and drove away from that prison. Away from those 6 impossible months, toward whatever came next. The transition was strange and wonderful. Maya moved in with me while she rebuilt her life. The tech industry welcomed her back after her exoneration, and within months she had consulting offers. I went back to school for social work, finding a way to help people that felt more aligned with my values. We dated properly, discovered each other outside of institutional context, built something real. A year after her release, I proposed. We were at the coast, watching sunset, when I got down on one knee. "Maya Chen, you taught me that freedom isn't about where you are, but who you are. You showed me that love can exist even in impossible circumstances. You waited for me while I figured out how to be brave enough to love you properly." I pulled out a ring. "Will you marry me?" She said yes, and we were married 6 months later. During our vows, I talked about how she'd been the freest person I'd ever met despite her circumstances. How loving her had taught me about real courage. She talked about how I'd seen her humanity when the system tried to erase it, how that recognition had saved her. Looking back, I'm grateful for those 6 impossible months. Not for the injustice she suffered, but for how it brought us together. For how it taught both of us about freedom, love, and choosing each other despite everything. People ask if we worry about how we met. I tell them every love story has its complications, and ours just happens to involve a wrongful conviction and an ethical dilemma. But what matters is that we handled it right, waited until the power dynamic was gone, built something real on honest ground. If you're still watching, thank you. Subscribe and comment about waiting for the right time. Have you ever loved someone you couldn't be with yet? Share your stories. Because sometimes the person in prison is more free than the person outside. Sometimes love means waiting for circumstances to change before you can be together. Sometimes the bravest thing is recognizing love in impossible places and choosing to honor it properly. I was her prison guard for 6 months. The day she was released, she waited for me outside those gates. And together, we walked into the kind of freedom that only comes from choosing each other honestly.